Now the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This time, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes of our regular session, January 3rd.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed. Also, I'd like to entertain a motion for the joint meeting minutes of November 30th, 2017.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
This time I would entertain public comments. Is there anybody here that would like to step to the podium and make public comments? Seeing none, we will move on to committee and officer reports. President, I do have a couple items. First item is from the commissioners. They have asked if we would join them in a joint session. I have those dates in front of me. And I will make sure you all get those. There's some dates in March and April. There's several. So Dan, would you email these out to all the council? I would sure appreciate that.
Is there a specific topic, Steve, or are we just?
What they're going to do is go over any type of projects. Nothing stands out. They just want to keep us up to date and keep the communication doors open between the county council and county commissioners. So, again, Dan will get those forwarded to you. The other item, I'm going to say this real brief, just so it's on the record. Last month, there was a paper ballot. I would encourage all council members from this moment forward not to do that. It is illegal, and if anybody needs to see the statute, I have that in front of me. So again, I would entertain everybody not to do that in the future. Vice President, Brad.
Yeah, I just passed down this sheet, which is basically the vehicles we bought in 17, kind of how much we spent, what department got them. I usually work with Dan Stevens on what vehicles we're buying countywide. So this kind of gives you a rundown. It was almost $1 million worth of vehicles we bought, what department got them, how much they cost. And we'll be shortly putting together the list for 18 for vehicles. So if you have any questions, look at it, get a hold of me. That's kind of the rundown of vehicles we bought for the county in 17.
Thank you, Brad. Appreciate that. Thanks for keeping us updated. Highway, we met this morning. Rick?
We did. Several topics I think will come up tonight, and just wait till they come up. The one I think we'll know ahead of time, we had some advice to table the Lowe's Way appropriation because bids came in lower and we can just use the bond proceeds. Right.
Maybe.
Anything else?
Nope, they'll come up later.
Let's move on to Finance Committee.
We did have a meeting, and the minutes from the meeting are in your packet. January 25th, it finalized all the numbers. We had Mike Reuter do research. He reported back to us, and it gives a breakdown exactly how much to come from each fund, how much bonding on the jail project and the Judicial Center room addition. So the specifics of how much and which fund it's to come from is in the minutes of the Finance Committee meeting packet.
Personnel.
We had a poll, and those items will be discussed later on.
Miscellaneous. Anything under miscellaneous? Seeing none, we will move on to number 9 on your agenda, unfinished business.
Have any unfinished?
Yeah, there's nothing there.
I don't have anything. So tabled business, don't see any there. Moving on to new business, the approval of vendor claims.
So moved.
Seconded.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Also under new business, a library board appointment recommendation for the Hamilton North Public Library.
There's a letter here in our packets, it looks like, for that. So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, at this time, I'd like to introduce Mr. Howard for an update of the funding options for the judicial expansion and the jail pod expansion. Mr. Howard, good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Schwartz. I'll kind of start off. Mr. Schwartz passed out a little outline of where we are. And it was interesting that the first thing you did this evening was approve the minutes of the November 30th meeting where a motion was made to fund the jail project at $3.1 million and a motion to fund the government center, I think, at $24.5 million. The commissioners have been busy. The second page is the cost summary of what they expected those costs to be, and the base bid and alternate that was received. You can see that the 12,655 was below the 13.1, but there are some architect's fees and construction management fees, but it is still below the 13.1. The alternate was that they took is $4 million for the build out. I don't know that we're going to address that necessarily this evening. I know Commissioner Altman has some thoughts on that, but that's not something we need to address today. As far as the government center, the construction managers are ready to put that packet on the street. Our schedule requires us to come before you to get appropriation of the base jail bid at your next meeting and to appropriate the funds that the Finance Committee has recommended for the government center, and we will, as to the $12 million borrowing, that will require 2 meetings, so that will be on your agenda at both the March and April meeting. And I've also talked to Mr. Jeter, and we'll be getting those documents to him and having him have opportunities to review those for the financing before your next meeting. And with that, unless there's questions, I'll stop. I know Commissioner Altman has some comments. And I also know that I did talk to Brad today about your Finance Committee meeting.
At our joint meeting, when we talked about the jail with the ad alternate to build out the additional 136 beds, you had concerns about being able to fund that project without a tax increase. And I suggested that we will have personnel costs come in line when we have to open that new facility, whether it's 120 beds or the full build out at 256. The designers and the sheriff feel comfortable that it is going to be the same personnel cost regardless of whether we fill it with 120 or 256. Is that correct, Mark?
Yes, that is accurate.
And so I suggested that we opened the annex, and when we opened the annex, we incurred approximately $750,000 of additional personnel costs to operate the annex. And I suggested that perhaps we should look at what would happen if we built out the entire facility, moved the female inmates back into the new facility and the extra beds, and then it would reduce the personnel costs from the estimate of $1 million to operate the new facility, slide the $750,000 or $150,000 over to that personnel cost, and it reduces the cost to operate net at just $250,000. So I did sit down and meet with Sheriff Bowen, Mr. Slaughterback, and Mr. Gelhausen to talk about that. Mr. Slaughterback does have some valid concerns about moving the females over to the existing facility for sure, which is understandable. He's very pleased with the progress that he's made with the female inmates at the annex because of a better atmosphere for them, additional facilities for classroom work and training, etc., which we understand. But when we looked at the layout of the jail fully built out, to save that type of personnel cost over a period of even 5 to 10 years, we're probably looking at a personnel savings of close to 8 to 10 million over the course of that time. And we could put carpeting and use some of the cell pods for additional classrooms to facilitate the plan as suggested, with moving the females over, making a better environment for them in the new jail without concerns about tearing up the facilities, etc. Mr. Slaughterback also indicated he has been in discussions with the federal government with respect to taking federal prisoners into our system with a full build-out, which I think would be excellent if we're able to negotiate that. I suggested that during the period of construction, we can work with him on a contract if that's going to come to fruition, and I think we could have a binding letter of intent in place at the time we open. And if that's the case, if he can generate revenue that offsets, $1 million or more of expenses, then we could continue operations as is without moving females over. So I know there's concerns about building out the full facility given the cash position that we're in, your desire not to increase taxes, but I think we offer you in this period, so 2 plans. One's guaranteed with movement of female prisoners over, that will have a significant net savings on personnel costs that would more than pay for any bond issue if you felt you needed to do that or to retire that. We just feel as commissioners, I know we have a resolution in place. We thank you for the resolution to fund the 120 beds, but we feel it's critical that we have good bids. We don't want to lose those bids. We want to make sure that we build out that facility now just because of the cost and inflation down the road. I think the sheriff knows we're going to need those within a short time period. If you'd address that again, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, so in looking at projections, we believe that within 8 to 10 years, we'll have those beds filled and be looking at building out the expansion. Obviously, the net cost of future construction, our construction costs are going to increase over time. We're well aware of that. But as Commissioner Altman stated, we have some plans in place that we think that we can, with the full expansion, the full build out, that we can offset some of those costs, and then thus have those beds available for our future needs without having to incur those additional costs down the road.
Ask a question. Actually, a few questions, if possible.
Yes.
So first statement would be in regards to, we have 120 days, correct, from the time the bid came in order to make a decision. And we were waiting on the state, if I'm not mistaken, pardon me, for the state to determine where we fell with dollars. I mean, we said March or April. We could look further into that if I'm not mistaken in that meeting. Without going through the notes, I can't be 100%. The other question is, what are you planning on doing then with the annex, the new juvenile, the annex, the women's location? Now, if they did move back into the new pod, what are you planning on doing with that capital? In answer to your first question on bid hold, the base 120 beds will expire, I believe, mid-March.
March 21st.
March 21st. And the bid hold on the expanded full expires mid-April. So we need to make that decision. I'm not sure how comfortable Mr. Reuter is on the release of the additional COET dollars that you all were looking at as a potential funding source to do the complete project. But this would give you assurances you could proceed in the interim
without, in fact, it'll be a net savings to the county by proceeding with that full build-out. As to the annex, I would suggest that if we're not able to rent it, which would be a possibility, that it be mothballed, because down the road, probably in 8 to 10 years, we will need that facility to, again, move inmates around to accommodate. It is a possibility. But it's just extremely expensive to operate those two disparate facilities, and if we can avoid that, it seems to make a lot of sense to combine. The operational costs are going to be identical whether we build out the 120 beds or the 256.
My first reaction is, wow. I would think this significant discussion should be held in a joint session that would allow us more time for Q&A as well as referencing, because we just approved minutes of what we said we were going to do.
Right. And that discussion was within those minutes, as I recall. In fact, I know it was because I referred back. When I looked at the personnel costs, those personnel costs were discussed in that joint session, as well as my idea of savings by moving the female inmates over.
I'm not disputing that you presented it. I'm saying that we at the time voted not to follow that. And now I'm getting that you're asking us to reconsider and revote.
Well, no, I'm not asking that. I'm suggesting what I offered to do is to investigate further in our joint meeting, because it had not been discussed with the Sheriff's Department as to the implications and the possibility of doing what I suggested.
I can keep talking, but I'll see if anybody else wants to say anything.
I do have one question. As we move forward, would it be wise for council to advertise for both?
Session or topics?
No, what I'm asking for is, would it be proper for us to advertise for the full amount, the 260 beds?
If you advertise,
whether we voted either way, at least it's open
you have
on
that
the
option
table.
if you advertise.
And the reason I say it like that, because we had discussed as well whether we got the special distribution, and this would hopefully work within those dates.
I would not be in favor of it, because I think that just gives us a fast track to spending more money and going against what you just said. And Christine, partly what you said, I have some questions with the numbers, because I thought I just heard you say personnel savings of approximately $250,000 a year.
No, that would be the net increase.
I thought because we were going to drop costs.
The estimated cost to populate with our employees the jail addition, regardless of whether it's the partial build-out or the full build-out, at that meeting was discussed at $1 million a year.
Right.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Sheriff, on any of these numbers.
Christine, net $1 million, correct?
Well, just new personnel costs of $1 million.
So you're talking about taking the net from $1 million down to a net of only $250.
Correct. By moving personnel, it wouldn't cause a rift of personnel or anything else. You simply move those employees over to populate the positions that are going to be needed to operate the new facility.
And would you recommend on that would be like a special line item, that money would go to it in the year to go to the general budget, so that then it could be made for a payment?
Well, what that would be is free up general fund with $750,000 a year that could be used to retire the costs of building the $4 million, or to pay a bond issue just to borrow the $4 million if you don't have the cash. And how long would it take to retire? Less than 10 years?
Yes. The other thing, Mr. Suggestion, since the whole time on the alternate is clear into April, we need to get going with the base bids. I would suggest that if you're going to consider the alternate, that you do a separate advertisement for that and from the base bid, because if the base bid needs to be handled more expeditiously. We have an extra 30 days to go through the alternate. So at least you can give notice to proceed on the whole.
And I'm fine with that too.
You just split the advertising.
I have no issue
One
with
would be
that.
$4 million, the other would be
One thing I would like to add to the conversation, just to muddy the water just a bit, is, Mark, you might have to help me with the numbers, but the way I understand it, the bid for the 120 came in about just under $500,000 than what we anticipated for the project. And then also, if we do the additional beds, the other additional, 120, 130 beds, it also came in just under $500,000 under budget. So we're looking pretty close to $800,000 or $900,000 under budget if we did both.
That's where you are currently. The estimates were 13.1 on the base bid, which is what we asked for a resolution for, which you graciously approved, and the bids did come in on the base bid at 12.6, so it is under the projections, and the alternate is under slightly as well. So while the contractors are on property, obviously they would prefer to go ahead and move forward with the alternate project because they're going to be staged, they're going to already have equipment there and be able to plan to move forward with that. I don't know what will happen with those alternate bids if we let those expire and then have to have them rebid down the road when the contractors have already vacated the premises.
We went through all this. I mean, it's the thing that I'm kind of perplexed about. We sat there, we called a joint session, we all sat down, we came to an agreement. Commissioner Airbranch said that was a great compromise. Everybody was yee-haw. We all walked out, and that's how we were moving forward. So I'm kind of confused why we're discussing it in this regard now. I thought we were going forward with what we discussed and agreed upon in the joint session, which was what the Finance Committee and Council felt was best for taxpayers and county government.
And as you'll recall in that discussion, I came up with this idea of just looking at the raw numbers, and I failed to understand why the council wouldn't consider it. And I think I did say that I would look at it further and bring it back for your consideration.
Also, the females, I mean, like I said, I thought we came to an agreement, but that's fine if we're going to go over this again. And also on the females, I was told that that's the best case scenario for everybody over there, is to have them in a separate facility, because basically if you put them over in the other area, that causes more personnel concerns if they're mixed in the other building. So I was told from a few people over there that was the best. What we did, moving the females to a separate pod, was the best case scenario for them. So I'm wondering why we're talking about moving them back into the other building.
Because facilities will be there, and you're saving the taxpayers $750,000 a year in operational costs.
Well, like I said, I'm getting a different issue.
I dispute that is an actual savings. It's a projection. It is not hard and fast, and personnel is always hard to put that number on. So I'm going to disagree, because we've had those claims before, which haven't happened.
Well, these are estimates that came directly from the Sheriff's Department.
Right, they're estimates. I'm just saying they're a guesstimate. It's not guaranteed savings. And I want to make sure I'm hearing right, because Mike kept referencing. I thought, Mike, you said 3.1. You mean 13.1.
13.1,
okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
The bids weren't that good.
Okay. Christine, you referenced, you thought we spent like $750,000 for the transition. Is that what I heard you say?
The numbers given to us from the Sheriff's Department is the total cost of personnel cost.
No, I'm sorry. The physical renovation that we did to accommodate it, putting the double bunking and that sort of thing.
I didn't reference that at all.
We had to buy a boiler and stuff.
It was $1.5 million is the number that we have from CCD. So I just want to make sure that was the full cost that you. I thought you were referencing $750,000.
No, I'm talking personnel costs, and that's
all you talked about.
Right.
Okay.
I'm only talking about personnel costs that will be year after year after year.
Right.
If we don't accomplish this, or the alternate is maintaining what I'm sure Slaughterback would like, and I understand the separation argument, and we talked about you now have a time period to really work on that contract, get it solidified, so now we have two options. One is the contract where we house other prisoners from outside sources, or we move the females over from the annex. Either one of them will free up significant funds from general fund to operate the facility. But it's both of those options require a full build out of that facility.
Well, I think I understand what Christine's saying. I'm not claiming to be the head of the Finance Committee. We've laid out a path from the joint meeting. We've got it down to dollars and cents. We can swing it. We can do it. No tax increase. That's what we need to go forward with here.
And I was going to reflect that on page 12. It does state, at the time President Glenn was asked to pulse check, if you will, the council, and it was a 6-1 on the 13.1 being appropriated for the jail, 120 beds. We could revisit, and it was March or April that we stated we would, and that 25.5 would be appropriated for the judicial center. So
I mean, if you look at the Finance Committee, I mean,
right.
We worked it down, you know what I mean, to make all this work, what money comes from which fund, how much bonding. That's what we need to go forward. We agreed on, we worked out the finances, we can do it with no tax increase, and our cash is available. At some point in the future, when we get the distribution, we can have another conversation, but to change the plan now would not be what I would hope for.
I'm not here to try to change today's plan, but my question a few minutes ago was, should we advertise for the 120, or should we also come back and advertise if we get the special distribution?
We can do that in April. What we should do is go ahead and advertise in March the 13.1, right? Is that what we're?
Yes, I think Mr. Howard explained to us, the days are ticking by. We've got to go ahead with the base bid. Mm-hmm. And there's certain dates that we got to hit, and so that's what we need to do.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I mean, we talked about a number of things in our joint meeting, and you probably did bring that up, Commissioner, but we did agree on how we're going to proceed, and we could have another meeting after another meeting, but I think since we all 6-1 council voted in favor of this, 2-1 commission voted in favor of this, I think we should go ahead with the plan that we all agreed upon initially.
I understand your position, but I wanted to make sure you were aware of the cost savings and benefits before we proceeded on.
But just to be clear, though, we're not necessarily losing out on the opportunity to add the addition. We're just not making that decision. We're not appropriating that or making that decision
Correct.
Specific in April, or in March, rather. We prefer to wait until the distribution comes from the state, and we can make that decision by that mid-April date at our April meeting.
The bid hold, what is the exact date on the
April
bid hold?
21st on the alternate.
April 21st,
Correct.
those numbers will go away. You can elect before or after, and I just wanted to make sure you had this information ahead of time, so Finance Committee, you all can discuss it, but I wanted to make sure you had the information and knew that we vetted the pros and cons, and these are real significant savings, both now and long-term.
Well, I appreciate giving us the time, plenty of far enough out for that information versus throwing it out on us in a couple of weeks ahead of time. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Also, our financial advisor's here, Mike Reuter. Does anybody have any questions for him as we start to proceed?
I would have a question for Mike, if you could come up with Mike. So it's been around 3 months since we had our meeting. Do you have any better knowledge of what the distributions might be, or if they will be, and when?
I do not have any other indication other than relying on what's happened in the past. And April would probably be, at this point, the soonest that we would hear on any kind of a special distribution. Just looking at the last distribution, it was actually May before we had got any indication just from the state whether or not we'd receive a special distribution. So I feel at this point confident that we're going to get some form of distribution, but no final numbers yet, and can only rely on what I have seen in the past in terms of when that special distribution might be made available to us.
I'd like to also point out, too, that we've had situations where we've gotten distributions of COIT that come along with some exceptions as to what we can spend it on.
Right.
I'm not saying that they will do that this time. 3 weeks ago, Hamilton County was ordered never to have mass transit, rail transit. Then 3 weeks ago, the legislature decided that we should have it, or not we should have it, we could have it. So the legislature changes all the time on what we can have, and previously, when we got the COA distribution, we had to spend it on highway.
75% of it had to be spent on,
Yeah.
it was set aside for highway funding, correct?
So I'm belaboring the point, but we shouldn't spend money that we don't have, or earmark money that we don't have, would be my opinion.
Right. This is a little different than the traditional distribution we get of county option income tax, which we're notified in August of, and we get 12 equal installments throughout the year. It's very reliable. And in this case, this is my modeling of anticipating a special forecast or special distribution based on what I'm anticipating the state balances to be. But they have not agreed with those. And I would share with you, as in the past, COA probably has been our most volatile revenue that we have experienced over the years. So.
Is it still like that, Mike? Is that an ongoing thing, or can it be different every time when it comes to what we have to spend it on?
Well, I don't anticipate this next one would have to be set aside for highway funding. That was a time the state was trying to find dollars, and really what they did at that time is they had the legal authority to maintain a 50% cash balance of COA reserve at the county, or excuse me, at the state level. And they were looking for a way to get more dollars out on the roads, so they essentially reduced that percentage from 50 down to 15%, and that surplus that they gave you back with restrictions.
I got you. Yeah, I remember that.
Those were your dollars to begin with, but it came back with restrictions that 75% of it must be earmarked for highway funding. So we're really kind of back to the old model, but instead of being 50% cash balance, they maintained it's 15. And I'm anticipating that when we see the real collections numbers for 2016, which I don't have yet, and when I see those, I'm anticipating that there's going to be a surplus there. I've heard a number that I've not verified from another individual that he had heard it was going to be $12 million countywide for Hamilton County. I'm actually using $14 million. It's a little higher estimate, but that gave me some assurance that someone else had seen what I was seeing. So.
Yeah, and I was using the highway by way of example, because who knows what would happen anything could happen between
right.
now and distribution.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Any other questions from Mike?
No, I got
Thank
nothing.
you. Okay, for this particular project, how would the council like to move forward for advertising?
I think
The auditor knows how to.
I think that Mr. Howard's reviewed our minutes from the finance committee. I think he's seen it, and it's up to the commissioners to put forward the next pieces of paper we see, and you've got the numbers from which funds that we would like to see that from. Is that right, Mr. Howard? Yes, sir. So we'll leave it to you to get us the paper in a time. Yep.
Want to make that a motion, Brad?
Well, I don't think it is. I think it's a function of the commissioners, isn't it? To provide.
Yeah, we control the financing, so.
What goes on your appropriation document.
Okay.
So, record's clear.
Yeah, I would make the motion that Mr. Howard provides the appropriations as laid out in the minutes from the Finance Committee
January 25th.
of January 25th.
Second. So.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed. Okay. Let's move on to the judicial expansion. We have an update on the judicial expansion.
That project is ready to go on the street for bid the end of this month. I've worked with bond counsel to get a schedule. There will be a requirement of not only your appropriation of your cash, but also there have to be 2 separate public hearings, which we would ask be set for both your March and April meeting. as well as the appropriation of your cash consistent with the Finance Committee's report. And I have explained to the design people that there is a budget. It is a fast budget. It needs to be whittled down if necessary, but we need to keep within that budget, and they have assured me that that's going to happen. So again, we're asking for the ability to advertise for appropriation and the public hearings on the $12 million finance that are necessary to move forward.
I would make that motion.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on this item? None. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thank
Mike.
you.
Thanks, Mike.
Madam Auditor, I assume you will have this on our agenda for March? Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to the open public hearing concerning additional appropriations. And County General Fund is requesting $519,913.
The additional
Isn't-
144, I'm sorry.
Isn't all the things that are
Yeah, that's good.
subletted underneath that add up to that amount?
Yes.
That is correct. And those will be additional appropriations, 144 amendments, transfers, and reductions.
So item number 10 is included in that? Underneath the, public,
Item 10 is all the below.
And item A, the 519 is all of them totaled up, is that's correct?
1 through 8.
That is
Okay.
correct.
Okay.
So the first item is going to be the assessor additional for $20,000.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Move on to item number 2, the auditor. 3 here under the auditor, an additional $6,000. There's a 144 amendment with a new position request. And item number 3 is adopt new position job description.
I would make a motion to approve all 3.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries.
Love the auditor.
Okay, Commissioners additional, there's for $9,147.
so moved.
Second, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving on to number 4, the council additional, $27,940. Amy is the sponsor on
I'm
this
spending
one.
on 27,000 on
So I'll
that.
make a motion to approve for discussion.
I see Ollie's out there.
What are we
I
spending?
just need a second, thank you.
Second.
This was actually just an oversight at budget time. It should have been included. There were benefits for our Hamilton Heights Youth Assistance Provider that were not included. And so this is basically, it was previously funded in rainy day in 2017, and it's actually going to be funded out of general in 2018. So
Okay.
it was just an accounting mistake. So we just need the benefits approved for that.
Was
And
there a
you will
motion?
see that again.
Got a motion in a second,
Yes, I
Steve.
do.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Next page, number 5, the judicial services reduction, $9,323.
So moved.
Reduction, so seconded. Yeah.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify
Aye.
by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. I like reductions as well.
Sorry, Steve.
Okay, moving on to item 6, ISSD. That's our computer department. There's 3 items under that tab. There's additional, it's a reappropriation for $414,968. And another additional appropriation for $41,858. That's a personnel issue. And then the transfer of funds for $92,261.
I'll make a motion to approve all 3 for discussion.
Second.
Moved and seconded.
I
Discussion,
can give the
please.
information if you'd like. Mr. Mertens was unable to be here due to a commitment. So the $414,968 was actually an error made in the approval in our December meeting. It was for the assessor's software, if you recall that discussion, and it just unfortunately was not allocated properly. Is that correct?
They didn't get a contract.
Okay. So it's what we need to appropriate for this year. The $41,858 is the discussion that we had in January pertaining to Merton's requests of the system administrators, the Pat C and the Pat B, if you recall that. And then additionally, it's just the reclassifications that were approved in November of 2017 and some overtime as well. So all of these had been discussed in previous meetings. They just need to be appropriated.
Perfect. Thank you, Amy. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, I'm sorry, we have the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Okay, we have the prosecutor's office. They need $300.
So moved.
Second.
I don't see a sponsor here, Mr. President.
It's a transfer. Why, you want to take it?
I couldn't resist. I'm
I'll
sorry.
be happy to sponsor that.
Yeah, I was looking for a motion in a second.
Motion.
Second.
Yeah, you already
Okay,
got it.
thank you. I can't hear too well up here sometimes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, the sheriff, 144 amendment.
So moved.
Seconded.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, Project Incom, requesting $88,358. I am the sponsor on that. Does anybody have any questions? Ralph is here this evening.
I'll make a motion to approve for.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion?
Wait, why didn't this come out of the last budget? Just enlighten me a little bit. Why didn't we do this at budget time?
Ralph's here. He can speak probably a lot more fluent than I can on this particular issue.
Because of our budget years on a different year than yours, we run from July 1 to June 30th. And when county employees were provided funds, or provided raises in January, we didn't have the money in our budget, our 17-18 budget for that. So we had to appropriate the additional funds to pay for those last 6 months in our fiscal year.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
He his grant funding runs on a different time cycle.
Okay.
It does. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thanks, Ralph.
Thank you, Ralph. Okay, item C, the Motor Vehicle Highway Fund requesting $234,000.
There's two sheets here, by the way.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second. Any discussion, questions? All
got-
those in favor, I'm sorry.
I mean, just since it's so much, can you just give us a quick synopsis, Steve? It's got your name on it.
Yeah, it's just funds to reappropriate. They missed the last year's carryover.
Okay.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed.
Sand's getting wet.
Sand is getting wet. They put a new roof on, or going to put a new roof on. Okay, item D, the Guardian Ad light item. Two pieces here.
That's a transfer and a reduction. I would make a motion to approve
I'll
both.
second that.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor
Aye.
and those opposed. Item E, the auditor ineligible homestead reduction for $325,000.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. Okay, item F, the Parks and Recreation. There's 3 items here. 2 new position requests. And item 2 is to adopt the job description, a part-time executive assistant. And item 3 is to adopt a job description for a part-time special events coordinator.
I'm sure we all did. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second it. I just made the motion.
Sorry, second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion?
Yeah, I think we all talked to Al about this. He rose off of his deathbed to explain it to us because he was definitely sick. So anyway, yeah, I think this was partially a misunderstanding when we approved 2 new employees, and somehow or another we discounted the part-time, so we're just kind of coordinating the whole thing and doing what's supposed to be done, the way I understand it. Is that right, Al?
No additional
Thank you.
funding, right? There's no additional funding. Full
Yeah.
funding of the
No,
position
no extra,
already
yeah, no additional funds.
in the budget.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, motion carries.
Opposed, that's what I'm not sure.
No. I'll try to speak clear for you. Okay. Item G, the Public Safety Communications is requesting $46,000.
I would be
Your
happy
response?
to. I will make the motion to approve for discussion.
Second.
So this was actually an error that Director Snowden and I were having a conversation that I uncovered when he had gone through and was looking at the increases for his employees for 18. He incorrectly checked the box that basically stated that they should all stay at the same level and failed to increase them. So you will see that this is adjusting to what their 2018 salaries should have been. And it was just unfortunately an error on his part.
And now is this retroactive? We go back to January 1?
Yes.
Okay.
Full amount that we pay, or is this our 8%? Or?
That I cannot attest to as far as what's written here, as far as if it's figured.
So this is 8%?
It's the full amount, and of that 8% is what we will.
But the county,
8%.
but the county taxes pay 8% of this 46,000. Is that what you're saying? Okay.
Is that right, Mike, you think? You're coming up already, so.
That's because
Mr. Snowden, come on to the
That's
podium.
because he loves to come to county council.
Does like these meetings.
Yeah, it's always good to have him here, too.
First of all, I apologize for the error that I made that caused this situation. So the $46,000 is part of the total fund that we have available to us. Of that fund, the county pays about 8%. Yes, sir.
Question for you real quick. Just want to confirm, I think what you talked about the last county council meeting. It is 1 out of every 5 employees nationwide average needs to be replaced every month,
You're
every 30
referring to the
days?
turnover rate at communication centers throughout the United States. It's about 20% per year. So yes.
Per year. So 1 out of every 5 employees on average
turns over
within a 12-month period. Wow.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks for your time.
And we discussed a little bit earlier about the Lowe's Way to Keystone Ramp.
I'd move to table.
Second.
Why, okay, it's been moved to second. Why are we tabling this?
They asked us to.
Oh, okay.
Been a motion and a second to table.
That wouldn't be right. To table, yeah, there is no discussion on the table. That's correct. You're right, Rick.
That's our parliamentarian right there.
I know, what was I thinking?
All those in favor signify by saying aye to table this.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. The Youth Assistance is requesting $27,940.
I'll make a motion for discussion.
Second.
This is basically just appropriating the money that we just approved.
Okay.
I didn't want anybody to be confused there. It's not extra.
Thank you, Amy. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Item J, Vector Control Grant. It's a reduction of $97.38.
Moved.
I'd make a motion to, or second that one and include a K also.
Okay.
And L, can we add L too?
It's been a motion to include J, K, and L.
Seconded.
With me.
Yeah.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Three reductions.
Carries. I like the reductions. Okay, there's a DUI task force grant. There's a reduction of $2,666.29. And there's a transfer for $2983.75.
I would say Fred has moved that, and I would second. I would also like to include the next one down in. These are, I talked to Robin, these are closing out 2 grants. So by doing those, we're not adding money, we're closing out grants that have already been.
Okay.
Perfect. Been moved and seconded for M and N on our agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. O on our agenda, the UASI 2017 requesting $320,000. Paul Ayers is our sponsor.
Yeah, this is a grant. You want to, Carl, do you want to address this?
It's been moved and seconded.
Yeah, sorry. Did we have a motion?
But I'd like to make a motion to have
I'll move that we
discussion.
approve.
Second.
Okay.
We now have a motion and second. Go ahead.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Good evening. Yeah, this is the UASI, the Urban Area Security grant that is back now. We lost it for a few years. It's back now. We were awarded, I believe it was it $7 million total? So we did a split between Marion County, Hamilton County. This is our share of it. 80% of it is going to go to training for all Hamilton County public safety, police, fire, and then also public safety throughout the district. So that's what
I see you're going to spend $80,000 on equipment, machinery and equipment. What are you going to buy with?
That is going to be a front end loader that is going to be used for partly between the sheriff's department and us, and then also it'll be considered a deployable resource. There's other counties in our district that don't have one of those, and they don't have the means to rent one either.
So how would you move that?
We put it on one of our trailers and take it down.
You have a trailer big enough to handle that size of front end loader? Sure do. Okay.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks a lot, Carl.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank you,
everything
Carl.
you do.
Thank you,
Thank
Carl.
you so much.
Okay, the FHWA reimbursement fund.
No.
Now we got another one.
Pete.
Oh, I'm sorry, I jumped ahead. The EMPG competitive requesting $14,280, and this is also Paul Ayers.
Yeah, it's this is a grant awarded, so we're multiplying. If you want Carl, I'm sure he can come back up and explain it. But it's a grant.
I make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Although, sorry.
Any other discussion?
It's like Carl's
Question?
halfway up. I'd like to hear what he has to say.
Sure. Come on up. Come on back up, Carl.
My understanding briefly is just this is a grant that we're getting. It's not any coming out of general fund or anything.
Absolutely, and this grant is going towards a training that we're including all law enforcement, not only in Hamilton County, but in the district. It's going to be a scenario of a collaborated attack, so you have different coordinated attacks going on at the same time, and how are we as a county and our district partners going to respond to that kind of stuff. It's a huge opportunity, and like I said, we're including so many different law enforcement.
When you talk about an attack, could it be like a chemical type attack?
Okay.
And if it's a chemical attack, do you work with Barry in the health department also in that? Okay.
This one here is actually going to be more of a shooting, but it can also incorporate chemical, explosives, all that good stuff.
Okay.
So.
Perfect. Thank you all.
Thank you.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Now we'll move on to Q. The FHWA reimbursement fund is requesting $85,664.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
This is reimbursement coming back from Federal Highway, so given the money so it can be put back.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Got a couple of transfers coming up here. There's Operation Pullover, and there's the DUI Task Force. These were both transfers from earlier in the agenda. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to combine RS and T, right? All 3 transfers.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, emergency preparedness grant. There's a reduction for $2,662.81, and there's also a transfer of $15,478.79.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving on to V on your agenda, it's HCE operating grant requesting $1,214,094.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Robin, are these that are coming out of grants, is that why they don't require a sponsor because of grant money? Previously? Okay. Okay.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay.
Can we combine B at
Yeah.
Y? Can whoever made the motion adjust to include V through Y?
Or we could just vote on this one and then combine WXY, make it a little easier.
Okay, we'll go ahead and get this one out of the way. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Now, I would entertain a motion for the capital grant, the discretionary capital request, and the CDBG.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, saying none.
Wait a minute, Steve.
Okay, we do have a discussion.
The CDBG is different than I didn't know why you're combining that.
Budget process. I held them.
Still part of the budget process, though. We can,
Okay, all right, well, it's community block grants and the Hamilton County Express, so just giving that explanation. So, okay.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
aye.
Motion carries. On to Z, the community corrections requesting $72,263,000.
So moved.
Second.
I'm gonna assume that this is because of the calendar thing again, right? Okay.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay. Now, the court recidivism reduction grant, it's another reduction for $41,588.89.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
This time I'm going to close the public hearing, and there's some announcements. Sheriff?
No announcements this evening.
Thank you. Council Attorney? Thank you. Madam Auditor?
Yes, I had sent you a memo for temporary interfund loans that we have to make each year to cover shortfalls, and so I'm requesting your approval, ratification of those checks.
No announcements. Motion?
Yes, please.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you.
This time I'm going to close the,
I want to ask you, are you going to close the public hearing? Okay, sorry.
I'm going to close the public hearing. You have some discussion?
This question on this, you handed this out, what is this for? Was that spreadsheet, or was this coming from the committee?
I don't know.
What is it,
What do you
Rick?
have?
This spreadsheet says.
Brad.
That's on the
That's
vehicle.
Brad.
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
yes, okay.
That's on
All
the
right,
vehicles
thank
we
you.
bought in 17.
Thanks.
Anything else to the good of the order? If not, we're adjourned.
No, I didn't make that.